My name's Steve Cronan. I'm the CEO and founder of Fifth Kind. We have been doing digital asset management for the film industry for about 10 years now. So to give you a quick summary of where we started, about 10 years ago as the IT and digital asset manager on the Matrix sequels. And what we really saw there is how do we manage all the digital files across my whole production? So not only just how do we look at it individually of each department, but how do I do a holistic view of how do I manage it even from a studio level? On the Matrix sequels, we had 2 films, the game, the Animatrix, all happening at the same time. We had 15 different visual effects companies. We had 3 different production offices around the world. And we needed a way to keep everybody in sync. We had hundreds of terabytes of data. We had security was through the roof. They were super paranoid about people getting access to the sequels, all that sort of stuff. So what we started to realize is that we needed a central tool to actually manage all the assets across the whole production. So to explain a little bit of background about what is asset management, it's really how do we track, secure, and make decisions around any digital file across the whole production, across the whole studio. So what really evolves from there once you're saying, okay, how do I put any file in the system, any script, any storyboard, any video, no matter what resolution, no matter what codec, no matter what file size, get it to a space where we can all share and collaborate. What happens is once you get that data in the cloud, is you start building workflows around that. So what are the review and the approvals? What are the distribution processes? What are the actual decisions and the impacts of those decisions on asset management? So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk through a deck that kind of gives you a high-level overview of the company in the system. Then I'm going to do a walkthrough of the system in some sort of light detail. And then at the end, I will do like a 10-minute or 5-minute sort of walkthrough with you guys where if you've got your iPhones, iPads, or laptops, we will do a quick review together and I'll show you how we track that and report all that sort of stuff. So slightly different to the previous demonstrations. So we currently have worked with all the big studios. We've done about 25 big budget features, everyone from Sony to Aardman Animation in the UK. Aardman Animation's a pretty interesting client for us. We completely automated their whole stop motion pipeline. So they're the guys who do Wallace and Gromit and Chicken Run. So we literally will have 30 animators shooting a frame at a time for 2 years to create a 90-minute movie. And they're literally, shoot a frame. They're actually doing it stereo. They move the rig, shoot another frame, move the guy, and repeat. So we literally worked with them to develop tools around puppet tracking, mouthpiece tracking, scheduling. And basically one of the key pieces which we just won an award for called a DAMI, the Digital Asset Management Award, is for the lab process. So literally what we do is when they say this is my cut from the floor of I want to use these frames in this order, we pull in those raw frames, we create these stereo MXFs and push to editorial, we create the DPXs and push the encoder, we create the EXRs and push to VFX, we create the H.264s, put it in the web interface, and that can be reviewed. Basically, we took their pipeline, which used to take 1.5 days to review a shot, and now takes 10 minutes. So the director is just sitting there watching 2K files just come through and he's reviewing shots straight off the floor. He can give the feedback that that animator is still working on the next take of that same shot. So the amount of power and savings we've brought to that pipeline have been pretty ridiculous. Here's a number of kind of the productions we've worked on. Very sort of high-end. Security is a big part of what we do, and I'll dive into a lot more of that later. Thousands of files, hundreds of terabytes. Many users across the whole different production. Marvel's our biggest client right now, so this is the way we envisage the system from the start, is how do we manage all this data from a studio perspective. So right now with Marvel we have 4,500 users. I think we're up to about 1,400 companies now. We distribute 40,000 files a week, that's excluding frames. We basically distribute about 2 million files per year. We've been able to quantify at least $1 million of production we save them. Simply by bringing everything into one system, diving into these specific workflows of how do I manage my rough cuts, production still approvals. We get actors who are on set reviewing their production stills the same day. The still photographer comes in, grabs the files, uploads into the system, we'll convert all those raw formats, CR2s, NEFs, DPXs, whatever it might be, make them viewable, and the actor can, say, use their iPhone, and I'll walk through this. You can literally go left and right to cycle through the assets, up to approve, down to reject. You can do the same on your iPad, Android, whatever it might be.
Steve, can I stop you 1 second?
Sure.
Can I just get you, if possible, to sit down, just because we're blocking the screen on the second camera. I want to be able to get all your stuff.
Okay.
Thanks.
So then many other workflows that kind of fly around that, from MPAA screeners, we do airline distribution, we do all their consumer products, everything from Hasbro and Hallmark, Upper Deck, every toy, every card, every single company that Marvel interacts with routes through our system. All the bid management processes, so we can ensure that no one actually can download that file unless you want them to. So you could send out a bid to 15 companies, award it to one, and be sure that no one else has access to that data. So there's this whole layer of digital rights management, DRM, that comes in that says you can see a file for 2 days or 2 hours and ensure that it's not on their computer. This is kind of a broad view of how we look at a production. What are all the different file workflows that come together to help you create your production? How do we first take that script? How do you distribute that? How do you secure it? How do you get feedback, review it? We've got a pretty big queue on the new Superman. Chris Nolan used to be the guy who would fly to your house with a script, wait for you to read it and fly home. Once we explained all the security that we bring, he now forces everybody to read the script through the system. There's no more prints of storyboards, there's no more prints of scripts, it's all watermarked on the fly with your name, viewed and tracked through our system. Then we start diving into each other's sort of layer. How do we manage research? How do we build a research library that's no longer, I'm sorting this barn under this set, but I'm sorting a barn under the barn, but associating it to the set. So across the studio, I'm building these big libraries of all this organized and tagged, really nice photos and nice video and all this information about that research. So right now, Marvel get at least $100,000 production savings in reuse of assets. And that is going to be extremely exciting on Avengers, because now all their characters in one production, we have every 3D model, every still approval, all that information is there from every production they've done since day one. So one of the unique things we really do is we look at all the creative stuff happening up front, because the creative stuff is what is going to feed the rest of the production. For us, we typically start on a production as early as we can. From that first production designer getting on board, getting those habits of how people track assets, how they put them in a system. We've had instances, say on Green Lantern, where we've gone from one production designer to another, and here you could log in and see exactly what the production designer had done previously, what was approved, what's not, what notes, all that information. And once we've captured all the creative, then we get into the technical pipelines. How do we manage dailies? How do we distribute files out to our post house? How do we get stuff out to our visual effects vendors? How do we ingest that? The review process around all that sort of stuff. And then by the time you come down to marketing, everything's structured as to what's approved, what's not. You can give access to marketing to just approved assets, and then you can manage the whole communication pipeline. So they're actually not having to question you as much or impact you as much, because everything's streamlined through this one interface. So we look at every department, we say, okay, as an example, I'm putting together a visual effects bid package. I need to get certain information from art department, I need to get my breakdown from production, get it out to VFX, and then how do we get that out to the external vendors? So how am I sharing information between all these external companies and streamlining those workflows? So what we did is we built a web-based tool, just as we've seen today, no need to install anything, bringing all these kind of security, organizational features into an organized, streamlined web-based tool. We can ingest through many different formats. We actually integrate into file capture devices like codecs and S2, so we can actually be capturing directly from the set. We have something called tag and associations. It's basically hierarchical tagging. So you could say, not only does this asset exist in this particular scene, but it also has these particular vehicles, these particular characters, whatever it might be. So being able to associate assets to each other. We also handle all your transcoding. So we currently support 50 different video codecs. So if you're uploading any type of video, a ProRes, a Windows Media, whatever it's going to be, we're going to convert it to a high and low res H.264 video at 170 frames a second. So you get really quick turnaround times on all that video going to the system. We literally, when we came into Pixar, we started in post. We ingested 4,500 dailies and 4,500 visual effects shots, automatically tagged them based on naming conventions, and converted them around in the first day. Baz Luhrmann's, yep.
How many frames per second did you say?
Up to 170 frames a second.
Okay.
Yep. On Baz Luhrmann's Australia, we started in post as well. We ingested 100,000 production stills in the first day, converted all the CR2s, NEFs, all that sort of stuff really quickly. Really powerful searching. So of course we deal with millions of files. The Marvel system now is over 1 million files. So we need to make sure that you can find whatever you want, across your productions, across your studio quickly and easily.
Who's doing the tagging on the pictures?
There's a lot of automation and there's some manual aspects of it as well. So I'll dive into that as we start.
1,000 pictures, that's a lot of tagging.
So basically what happened is the structure was already under a folder with their actual the name of the location. So we were able to create the pre-structure that said, this production is a folder, this is the company, this is the department, drag all those folders in, and based on that folder convention, we were able to automatically ingest all that. So we can ingest based on a naming convention, a folder convention, directly into specific hardware devices, or allow manual intervention. So then what really evolved around this was how do we collaborate? How do we actually communicate around these assets? So first was the access controls, not only from a security perspective, but a creative perspective. I might be a director who can see everything, but my visual effects super wants to get a couple more versions of that shot before he exposes it. We deal with this, the issue, or this potential issue, that we are bringing unparalleled transparency to the studio. They're going to be able to access more than they've been able to access before. We need to ensure the production can maintain that creative control. Of course, we have basic commenting in the system. We have an instant messenger like Facebook chat. And this is where we're saying real time. You can be actually communicating directly through the system in real time. And we also have annotations and approvals. So you can draw on images, draw on video, do frame-specific audio notes. You can literally audio dictate in the system, send it to someone. When they click the link, it'll take them to that frame, show the annotation, and play the audio like a one-click voicemail. We do all the watermarking. So every image, video, PDF you look at is going to have your name on it as you look at it. So you could literally put in, like Marvel put in one movie of Thor. They'll send it to 200 airlines. Each airline, as they look at it, has their name on it. We do bit level security. So none of the data is stored on that person's disk. So that way you can be ensured that they're not going to get that file unwatermarked, they're not going to have that file sitting on their disk, and you have absolute protection of your content. We can also handle all the distribution. So if I want to, we basically eliminate FTP from the process, or SFTP, Aspera, Scenios, all these kind of ways of pushing files out of our production out to our external vendors. We can automate all that as well as all the notifications and tracking, as well as an expiring, so an aspect of DRM that says I could share it with you for 2 days and then you lose access. All the production management tools we build around as well, document management, obviously ingest, one-liners, day-to-days. We built an iPad data wrangler. So on Men in Black was our first production that used it. They actually input all their camera lens information directly into their iPad, which becomes part of our shot tracking library and is associated with the asset for all time. We have a specific scene and slate management tool, a dailies player, and some automation through digital acquisition. And here's an example of how we basically integrate into different hardware devices as well. So we're trying to glue together all these different devices that you're working with, either on set or in post, whether it be on-set dailies through color font, 2K playback on a encoder or a color correction on a scratch. We don't care. We'll be completely agnostic as possible to these different devices. We'll handle all your backup. We'll handle creating all your editorial formats. And we'll do as much as we can to basically integrate directly into these systems, pull in the metadata, and allow you to automate the ingestion and conversion of those pipelines. So really when it comes down to the tail end is what are the benefits to you guys? To be honest, most of what I'm going to show you today isn't stuff you directly do. As producers, you tend to be sort of receivers of data. So what I'm going to show you is, we built this system for a lot of guys down in the trenches. All the guys who are needing to manage all this creative stuff, share stuff, move it around. And so where we get this kind of $1 million+ savings at Marvel is basically streamlining and automating all your internal and global file distribution, all the approvals processes, communication pipelines, the real-time collaboration, all that image, video, PDF conversion, so you don't need Photoshop to view a PSD and things like that. All the security, so all the on-the-fly watermarking, mitigating your loss, and all the access controls to make sure no one's seeing a file they shouldn't. And really when it comes down to reducing the cost, it's all those things like paper and DVDs. We get drastic reductions in that. All your international distribution costs, so you're no longer having to burn any form of DVD or anything that's a digital file can be shared securely through our platform. all the labor through traditional processes like trying to do burn-in watermarks, you know, you're taking up editorial's time, you're taking up, you know, whoever's time, then someone has to sit there and, you know, transfer the files, drag and folders around, all that goes away. Be able to reuse and monetize your assets more efficiently. You know, before Marvel got us, they lost their logo and they had to recreate it. You know, the most simple thing, you know, just being able to find some assets, unless you're the guy who sorted it, you know, good luck finding it in and, you know, unlimited array of folders and whatever else it might be. So we really put a lot of intelligence into the metadata around how to structure assets. And then what we've found at the tail end, which is I think the most valuable story to a producer, is that by reducing the turnaround times and the miscommunication around the development of this content, we're actually seeing more versions of each shot come through. We're actually helping you create better quality films because people are able to just do more with their time and more with their money. So we're actually, yes, starting to sort of see the value of, by managing the stuff down the bottom, how that will just affect everybody and trickle up. So now I'll just switch over to the system. And again, I'm just kind of going to walk you through here myself, and then at the tail end we'll do a workflow together. So as I log into the system, I'm presented on the left-hand side with my different navigation. In the middle here are all the different departments I have access to. And on my right-hand side, this is a sort of quick inbox. So these are the different collections of assets I've been sent. So I'm going to start off with how do I basically search for assets. And I can do this in multiple productions. So I can say I'm going to search for everything in the production called 10. I want to get everything within the visual effects department. And now understand, when we say, you know, we're starting off with a department, we don't care what the asset type is. We don't care if it's a you know, movie magic file or an image or a video or whatever file you want to put in there. We will help you track it, secure it, convert it, do whatever we need to do. So I have these really powerful kind of search features here. I could drill down now into a specific sequence or into a specific shot. You know, like I said, a lot of intelligence around the metadata. You know, I could drop that filter out and say, show me all of the storyboards across that whole production. I could create a filter that says, show me all the storyboards that are approved, or, you know, basically an unlimited amount of kind of hierarchical searching that says, you know, also that's the 2D stage if I search for status. So show me all the assets, storyboards that are approved, and boom, there's all the storyboards that are approved. So there's a certain type of user that has access to search and can drill down into the whole archive of the whole production. And understand, by, you know, managing these workflows, we're automatically creating the archive along the way. So as an example here, I can mouse over, I can see this asset's approved and when we received it. I've got my individual file controls. And if I just click on this asset, one of the powerful security things is you'll now see my name is watermarked on the fly.
Could we get the projector, we'll do it more on the screen?
Oh, sure. Slide that up. So this is a PDF watermarked on the fly, and I, you know, have some basic options down the bottom. What's all the kind of embedded metadata? What are my commenting tools? So I can literally come in here and say I want to send to everybody in a particular department, in the digital asset department. I'll send a message to myself, type my message. I can also make it private, so it's only going to be between me and that user. And I can also be notified on review. So I get an email back when they view the asset I want them to view. So we have this kind of audit trail and this whole accountability. So I can just go add comment. I also have what's called associations. And this is what I was saying before. Not only is this under this particular production under a script, you know, it's under a storyboard, you know, bad labeling. But I can now associate it to, you know, what scene is it a part of? You know, what sequence does it relate to? What actors are in here? What characters? You know, anything. You know, I can tag this with TEDx, or I'll create a new character. I'll call him, you know, Sammy G. So now that I've tagged that particular asset with Sammy G, I can just come in here and type Sammy, and that's going to go and hit all those tags and show me here that here's that particular asset. So what the power in this associations and what we found in production is that every department needs to structure their assets a certain way. You know, art departments putting them under sets, visual effects under sequences and shots, productions under scenes. But how do all these other departments find those assets? And so what we found is with these associations is it doesn't matter what department you're in. If it's tagged to the scene, if it's tagged to the sequence or the set, whatever it is, you search it by how your department works. And this kind of matrix of metadata allows you to sort of drill down and find all that. This is another just asset. I also have all my different access controls. So what's unique about our system is we control the access at a higher level at the metadata level. So one issue we run into all the time is art department might be scared to put in assets into the system until they're approved. Now, we can create a rule that might say, hey, visual effects, you might be able to see everything in your department, but you can only see approved assets within art department. Or vice versa, you're someone who's in art department, maybe you only see approved in VFX. So rather than having to apply an access rule to every asset that comes in and all this extra work, sort it into however it's been structured, simply by changing the status will then expose those assets to VFX or hide them. So if I make it approved, it's exposed. If I make it omitted, it's hidden. And so that way when it comes down the tail end and you've got marketing, you just go, you see everything that's approved. And so basically by putting the data of that decision into the asset is impacting all the workflows that sit around it. Who's supposed to see what? Who needs to do anything with what? So there's all this power in the actual data itself. Then, of course, we deal with that political creative issue of I might want to override this rule. So now, restricted it down to me and a couple of Warner's guys. Get a couple more versions of that file in, and then re-expose it to the higher level access group. I get all the history of everything to do with this asset, so I can see who viewed, saved, printed, shared, did what, when. I got all my Google Maps for locations, so anything like you upload an iPhone photo, it's going to auto geotag that particular asset, if I can learn to type. Or I can manually tag it and say, okay, now this asset is associated with Disneyland, and now that's connected. So all your location photos, all that sort of stuff becomes extremely powerful. We do a bit of physical tracking with barcoding as well, but and I'll get into these modules later. Now, one of the other sort of aspects of collaboration is our ability to annotate. So now I'm on this particular image, I'm drawing directly on here. I can choose, different colors. I can choose, some text. Actually, let's type in here. So the cool thing is what I can do is if I save this, I can now share it with people. So I can either access my address book directly here and select from my users here, or I can just type their name. So I'm just going to share it with myself, like test comment. So now, not only is this frame saved so I have a quick reference to it, but it's saved up here as well. So at any point in time, I have access to it. And we can actually layer this as well. So if I come in here and do another annotation and save that, and this time I'm not going to share it, I'm just going to do, test 2. You can then turn these layers and combine them. And if I hit save, that would give me an image with both of those annotations combined. If I selected multiple frames and hit save, I'll get a PDF of every frame. So we're really streamlining that whole collaborative process. And we've seen huge value that we bring into, like an example on the new Superman, Alex McDowell. He was out doing location scouting. They were inserting concepts. He was giving their feedback while he's on the road. And so he's just keeping that train moving. He doesn't have to be emailed. They got to a point where they said, we realized we just don't email anymore. We don't email the files. Of course, they email communication. But the power in putting it up here once means all that communication around it, you're saving, every production we walk to will have Dropbox structures. We're sharing files there, it ends up this big mess. We're duplicating files all over the place. So we'll reduce the storage by at least 30 to 40% on that alone because we're organizing all that data. So I'll annotate on a video a little bit later, but I'll just sort of keep powering through here. Now up the top here, I have all my different controls to comment, to rotate, to print, to save, to upload to a group. So I'll give you an example of what if I wanted to add a new file. I've got a new version. So I can come in here, and this is an integrated upload tool. I've got my thumbnail view, and say I'm going to upload this particular pixel. So if I click upload, it's going to stream it here in the left-hand side. And it actually, we're just about to release something called UDP acceleration. So I don't know if you're aware of like Aspera or Signient, those kind of accelerated transfer tools, but we're integrating that so you'll get the accelerated transfer directly through the web interface without the need to install these other tools. So now that asset's gone into that group, and that's how quickly and easily I've added this new particular file. That will convert in a second and become available to me. Now the question becomes of, I've got these two particular assets and I need to share them with people. And so I click share. And this is a concept we call packages. It's just like a shopping cart. So I've created these collections of assets. And when I click share, that's all about bringing people into the system. So I've got a collection of dailies, I've got a collection of storyboards or one-liners, day out of days, whatever it is. Put them in the system. I've got a distribution list, so I'm always distributing to people at Summit, or I'm always distributing to people in a particular department, whatever it might be. So again, I'm just going to share this one with myself, and we'll walk through this together a little bit later. And I can expire it, so I can say, you can see this until Tuesday. Hit submit. So now they've only got access for 2 or 3 days. And then of course I get an email back when they view the files. Now the other thing I might want to do is I need to push these files out now. I need to push these out to the production called 10, and I want to apply a specific style of watermark. So we will handle all the watermarking for you, all the encryption, all the transfers. I type my message and I hit submit for transfer, and then it will go basically push all those files out for me. It will watermark every image, video, PDF, transfer all the files through whatever protocol I've specified, like FTP, SFTP, Aspera, SSL-FTP. Give you a full audit trail of what you sent to who and when, and even if you've applied a public PGP key, we'll encrypt every single file individually. So this way, we've just completely taken out of the process the need to go to someone to watermark all these different formats, for someone to sit there and drag files, to track what did we send to who and when. You know, when that vendor recalls and said, you didn't send us that file, you have absolute logs of what you sent them and when. And then of course just the power in, like Marvel will literally do a search where they'll say, show me all the footage for production Iron Man 2. Add everything to a package, send to Trailer House, submit. And then it will just sit there, watermark 4,500 takes, whatever it is, send them off to the Trailer House, and he literally did that in about 5 clicks. So you might sit there for 10 hours doing it all, but literally, you know, there's no human involvement at that point on. We can create a secure feed for a set-top box. You can download it to your desktop or Dropbox, or even get a report. Sometimes we get producers who, you know, aren't most tech savvy, so sometimes, you know, they want to view stuff on paper. So we can create an export now of here's everything in the package, and we've had some productions where they'll just sign off. Marketing says we want to release this for the website, sign this off, boom. We've got, you know, an actual document now that has tracked that approval. And I can also create a zip file, so if I want to one-click download or anything like that. We'll also have this tool to help with the dailies kind of process and streamlining this kind of review. This full screen player, where I can now have even a slideshow. So I can say every 3 seconds, switch to the next image. This could be a set of storyboards I'm just kicking back, watching. It could be location photos. I just want to have them going in the background so you're not sitting there and clicking, clicking, clicking. And then I can easily just jump to any other package directly from this view. So I'll just stop the play. And then at any point in time, I can, you know, just do my annotations, draw directly on here, and like I said, use my mic to leave audio notes, and I'll show you that soon as well. So what you end up with when you create these packages is this inbox of, this is all the different collections of assets I've been sent. Yep. Oh, thank you. So these are all the different collections of assets. It could be, like I said, dailies, one-liners, day-to-days. And we get a lot of productions who will just upload a PDF once, say, share it with my distribution list, done. Notifies everybody email, they click the link, brings them directly into the system. So around asset management, you know, there's different sort of tools as far as prioritizing the watermarks, prioritizing the transcodes, all that stuff. And again, this is not stuff I would ever expect a producer to do. This is all stuff happening by coordinators or assistants or an asset manager. You know, there is kind of this new role evolving in production, which is someone who is essentially appointed to look after the data across the whole production, so that it's, you know, it's consistency in tagging, helping facilitate, you know, getting stuff out to actors, getting stuff out to, you know, the producers, whatever it might be. So within the system, we also have a full crew list, so you can manage all the users and all the different access controls. You know, we get people like Natalie Portman, Anthony Hopkins, Will Smith. They're doing production still approvals. We're going to make sure no one can see their email address, so all these different controls are in there as well. So you're managing all your access lists and the user list. So if I'm distributing to the same 50 people all the time, I can automate that sort of stuff. And then just one last feature here, the browse. The browse capability also gives me a visual structure around how we've tagged those assets. So I can just navigate this as I would a folder on my local desktop, but now it's all in the cloud. And then we build specific tools around the different workflows. So say I'm doing a review of these particular stills. What I can come in here, and this is what actors were doing, is literally saying I press A to approve, press the right arrow key, I press R to reject, press the right arrow key. So literally we'll do about 30 to 35,000 production stills per production, all just going A right, AR, do. I can even press C, send a comment, type my message, and hit submit, and now I've communicated about that particular asset. So it's also a similar process we've applied for our iPhone interface, and I'm going to walk through the iPhone interface with you, so I won't jump into that just yet. Oops. So of course these are a bunch of frames all managed, and this is at the heart of the asset management. So just to summarize, I can search, I can view, I can track, I can secure, and communicate and collaborate around any digital file. What I can see down here is talking about who's online right now. This is the instant messenger. So this is where I can actually start to chat to people directly through the system. So this becomes an extremely powerful tool for streamlined communication. We're adding a layer right now that will even track what you're looking at when you're chatting. So you can recall a chat history related to a specific asset. Now where this is really evolving is we've seen a big shift. I'm sure you're all aware of a program called CineSync. Now, CineSync is being used to synchronize video annotations. You know, I'm drawing on a video here, you're drawing on a video there, we're seeing what's happening live. The biggest challenge with CineSync is that you need to have the files in both locations to make that happen. It's a big management pain in the butt. It's huge rushes and organization to make that happen on time. So what we've found is that CineSync will always have a place, we believe, at the top for very high-res reviews, when you want color-accurate reviews, when you've got 2K stuff you want to review. But if you want to annotate on a video, there hasn't been a simple way to do that until now. So if I just search for some video here. So if I drill down into, there was one I particularly liked, where did it go? So say this one here, this particular plate. Just the asset. Again. Weird going on my browser here. Try that again. There we go. So now I'm viewing video. You can see here down the bottom I've got different annotation markers. So I can just pull up that particular annotation. I see the full log here. I don't know if you can hear my laptop, but this is an audio annotation. I'm saying hello.
Say whatever you want to say.
There you go. So now we are communicating directly. We're streamlining the turnaround and the review process. So what we're finding is that rather than having to do a CineSync session all the time, you do this kind of ad hoc reviews of, I could literally be a VFX soup who's online at 1 in the morning, some shots just turn up from a vendor in France. I've come in, I've done, changed this part here, and next thing you know, by the time I've got up in the morning, I've got another version. So we're actually completely streamlining the way that a lot of soups and a lot of people are reviewing and approving assets. We're completely reducing the turnaround times and all that stuff. So that's kind of the core asset. And then what we've done is, how do we manage the really detailed metadata that sits around assets? So one of the things we did is we built this data wrangler for iPad. So this you can load in your iPad, be on set, and enter all the camera and lens information directly into here. We're actually now an ARRI partner, and we'll be integrating directly in their cameras. So as you're shooting, we'll be getting frame-specific camera lens information directly from the camera and pre-populating this as much as we can. But also, we currently integrate into another product called Scripty, which is an on-set tool for script supervisor notes. So you can automatically just import all the script supervisor notes, and it will consolidate what have we captured between our data wrangler, what have we heard from the script supervisor, do our slates all match up, have we misslated somewhere, all that sort of stuff.
What was that program, the script program?
Scripty.
Yes, Scripty.
Script with an E, yep. So we're actually working with them to do an auto integration, so you'll be able to click a button from Scripty and it will auto import directly into our system. Glue all that together. So then once you've kind of come in and you've created your shot, you then want to, or you created your slate, you then associate it to which visual effects sequence and what visual effects shot this slate relates to. So then we have a whole visual effects shot library around this as well. So here I'm in the Kung Fu Panda, I've got FC shot 10 and 20. I can dive into a different production. I can see again all my visual effects sequences and shots, all the different statuses, and I can do the breakdown. So this is obviously more for the VFX department. And this is kind of, we're gradually stepping into replacing FileMaker. So getting rid of all this, disconnected information between the actual assets and between the metadata itself. And the type of cool automation we're bringing to this is, say, once you've completed your 3D pass and it's approved, we can then automate, well, who does it need to go to next? Do we need to now transfer a file out to the DI house? Do we need to convert that to an MXF so we can give it back to editorial? So simply by changing a status can trigger all sorts of events on the back end and help automate all this sort of stuff. So you can basically create this kind of default workflows with all these different tasks, see all the assets that have been associated to it as well, all the version notes, camera notes, all that sort of stuff. So really powerful stuff around the visual effects shot tracking. You've got slate libraries. You've got the ability to refine your workflow. So if you say my Bond workflow is review, turnover, and then main, but actually I want to do add a new stage and I want there to be a roto to start. So the roto stage is first. All this sort of stuff. So really helping you manage the shots. We also directly integrate into some file capture software called Codex. So Codex is basically a file capture system that hooks directly into cameras on set so that it's now capturing the file as a digital file. So of course the power in that is then we can automatically ingest that into our system. So what we end up with is all this certain information generated by the cameras, like time codes and whatever else, that get written to an XML file on the Codex, and then we process that and bring that in. So then we bring in the actual footage. So what you end up with is the clip is connected to all the metadata, and we automatically create a package of dailies per day per production. So the whole process of creating dailies, transcoding them, sharing them, becomes automated. You literally just plug in the mag from the Codex and it's all there. And to give you an example of how we then integrate these particular modules into the asset management system is if I now click on the footage tab, here's all that information, connected to the actual asset. Now the other cool thing is I might also want to see, well, what's all the other visual effects information around that? All I need to do is go associate. I'll pick the production 10. I'll say it's connected to a particular sequence. The sequence is dance battle, shot 40. Now I click on VFX. Here's my shot information. I can now say actually the status of this is it could be better. And then it's same with Wrangler. I want to know what's all the other wrangling information that I entered directly into the data wrangler. So I click 10 and select the slate. So slate 12x, and now here's my data wrangler. So you can see the power in taking this core problem of asset management and then building these modules around it and trying to integrate into the tools that do their particular role really well. Like Scripty is great for on-set, capturing that. We'll integrate that. We'll work with Codex to bring all that stuff in. And we did a project last year with Warner Brothers called NGP, it's Next Generation Production. And what we were able to do is there was about, I think, 60 hardware and software vendors, and we pulled everybody together and we said, what's the ultimate workflow we can create? What's the best product at file capture? What's the best product at this and that? And it became pretty obvious pretty fast who did what really well. And so now for the last kind of 12 months, we've all been working together to integrate as much as we can. And NGP2 is literally going to be all about real-time production. One of the things I did while I was on set for the NGP shoot, we're doing a 3D shoot and we're using a product called QTake. It's a video assist device which would capture all the video feed and allow you to sort of play back in stereo, and it would create ProRes files for us. So we wrote a little script that would grab those ProRes files, convert it to H.264 and upload it to the cloud, and literally within 12 minutes we were there annotating on a take we just shot in stereo. So that's the type of stuff that we're moving towards, is how quickly can we make this data available, even if it's a dirty pass and then a clean pass. certain people can review stuff, before it's graded, before the metadata has been verified. Get that into the the cloud as fast as we can, then have a separate process for verifying that data, grading that and replacing that. Complete levels of automation, and again, power an essential tool. We are in development on different stuff helping you with post as well, and I'll just give you a quick sort of peek of this. It's around EDL management, being able to upload a cut, see what all the different shots are, the different time codes, what's your primary and secondary LTO tape are they sitting on, what are your handles, what's the mount, begin pull. We will pull from disk, pull from tape, grab your cut, and this actual mount could be an attached drive, a SAN, or even an external server. So we're literally getting to the point where you could upload an EDL and we'll deliver your cut to the cinema. So that is the power of gluing this all together.
So, Professor, are you basically providing the services of a traditional post house up until the point of
We get asked a lot, how long do you think post houses will be around? Because this is a complete shift in the way that we can bring the lab to you. You could have a server on your production that does pretty much everything the lab does.
So up to the point I want to do a DI, you can have all the data and you then provide the file to the DI facility.
Yep.
They create the...
Yep. And we're working on some pretty interesting stuff to do with basically remote desktop, having stuff centralized in one place, being able to log in and use the tools there. So the data doesn't need to move around all over the world. The data lives in one place and we all work from it in one space. So that's pretty interesting as well. So what I want to do is I want to do a particular workflow with everybody. So you should all should have received a card that would have your login details. So you would go to https demo.fifthkind.com. Yeah, it should have been on your seats when you came in. And hands up if you're having any trouble. Okay, everybody's in. So what I want you to do is click on your name in the left-hand nav once you're logged in. And here you're not going to see what I see, you'll see this top section. And what I would like you to do at a minimum is if you can enter your actual email address and... Yep.
Where's my name?
Sorry, in the left-hand nav here on the left-hand side. Oh, sorry, just here.
Package inbox, demo.
Can you see where my mouse is here? It might say demo or whatever. Yep. We see it over here? I'll just keep moving around. So once you click that, just update your details for me.
And the first name is demo, the last name is demo.
Yes.
Yeah, so you change it to your name or whatever you want to do. Update those details basically, and that way I can now communicate with all of you. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my the iPhone interface so you can see this at the same time. Okay. So let me know if anyone's having trouble there. Everyone updated their name? Okay. That's cool, I'll watch it from here.
So when you edit user, you just change that information?
Yeah, so just update it to your details and hit submit, and then that will automatically update for me here in the system.
So we don't need to add a worship code or...
No, none of that other details. Yeah, just put, the main thing I just need is your email address, but if you want to update anything else, then go for it.
Well, how do you go back to the emails?
Okay.
Just click on where it says demo 1301. Look on the left-hand column underneath menu. It says home. Click on demo.
So then just down on the bottom right-hand side, you'll hit the submit. So hit that when you're ready. The cool thing is you'll start to see here in the right-hand side, the names are starting to update. I can see exactly who's online right now. Let's wait for a couple more. Okay. Now with this demo, if any of you have configured your email address, you'll actually be able to access this from your iPhone, iPad, or that, laptop. Unfortunately, you would have need to have updated your email address on your laptop first to be able to use your phone. So we'll just walk through that. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to walk through a workflow of, I need to get files for you to review. So we're just going to do something really simple, which is traditionally how producers use our system. It's a lot of, send me what I need to look at, I'll give my feedback and, get out of my way. So I'll find some assets here. So what I'm going to do is I'll share these Shrek assets. So just give me 1 second here. So I'll click share. And so the figurine, and I'll call it for PGA. So now what I'm taking to is this share window. And I can see here that I've got these particular users have already entered their names. Anyone who's still demo, I'll just ignore for now. Let's send it to 1099 as well. So I'm going to say, hello everyone. Oops, everyone. Here is a test package. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make that package expire on Monday. So you can see this for 2 days. Now your logins will be valid for 30 days. So basically what I'm starting with is a small workflow, and then we'll bounce it up from there. So now when I hit submit, you should all receive your email. And if you click that link in your email, it's going to take you directly to that package. Now, if you're on your phone or on your iPad, it would look something like this. So if I go 1099, PGA, what was it? PGA. What was the login?
Demo.
Oh, demo, sorry. Yep, missed that. There we go. So you can see here now, this should be what your iPhone or iPad would look like, which is, I'll just get rid of the scroll bar. Here is the 4 packages that I've been sent to review. Here's one I've reviewed previously, and here's the one that I've just been sent. So the cool thing is if you go to this asset, swipe up to approve or swipe down to reject. You can see here in the bottom right hand side. You can just swipe left and right to go through the assets. You can click here to get the metadata, or you can click here to send a comment. And just keep in mind, when you send a comment, it's going to notify everybody who's on that particular share.
We're supposed to be informed through our email account, sorry.
Yes, so you should receive an email. Now, if you don't receive an email yet, like it could take a second, the other thing you can do within the system is click on the packages menu and click on package inbox. So within the package inbox, you should then see the figurine PGA package that I just sent you. So if you click on that, so what I want you to do is, dive into the actual assets and either, do an annotation, come in here, use your mic if you want to, say, whatever, this guy looks weird. And you can share that with people who are on the list, do some approvals, that sort of stuff, just do whatever, and I'm going to show you how we kind of consolidate all that communication around, whoever's been talking.
Shrek's on a diet.
Sorry?
Shrek is on a diet.
Yeah. The other thing that's cool is if you click on the review button, you can just press A to approve and R to reject. So I can press A, and so basically it's going to log all your independent, communications. I'll just give that a couple of seconds.
So Steve, I just finished up a movie called Paranorman, which was the stop motion film.
Oh, nice.
Like
Oh, really?
we were shotgun based.
Yep.
I was line producing that.
Yep.
And I'm glad to see this because that shotgun was a living hell.
Oh, good to hear. Yeah.
The concern that I'm seeing here that I have with shotgun and what my basic duty with that movie was,
Yep.
I was pretty much just spending a lot of my time doing breakdowns of the animatics as they came in, signing elements as good as.
Sure.
But the process was really slow, even with an in-house server and an asset.
Oh, really?
We had one of those big cargo containers from Iraq.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Yeah, it was fully.
Jeez.
And it was just really slow, and do we have that same sort of?
No. And honestly, we could probably sit down. There's a lot of stuff we built specifically at Aardman for stop motion,
Right.
which there's enough information I'm blasting out today. I can dive into that with you separately. But yeah, the tools we've built for them, we can now report how many frames were in the animatic, how many in the previous, how many were on the floor, and how many in the cut, and give you per shot updates and all that sort of stuff. So we've got a lot of low-level detail on that sort of stuff. So let's have a separate chat, and I'll dive into that for you. So what we should start seeing now, I'll click on here. So Brian did an approval and a denial. Ronnie did some approvals, good stuff. Doesn't look like anyone's done an annotation yet. Oh, Michael, oh, that's a different one. So what we're starting to see here is here's an annotation that I did. Here's an approval and a denial Brian did. So, add all your comments. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at an asset group, an actual group of assets. And so this means I can see all the communication around that whole group. If I dive into the specific file, then I'm seeing all the communication specific to that file. But the powerful thing is we have the third level, which is at the package level. So we can now have a communication, and I'll just do a test reply, and you're all going to get this, around the package as a whole. So I could create, a whole collection of all my favorite, hero shots of a particular actor. What do you think of this whole massive collection? And we can communicate and consolidate all of that sort of stuff. Now, the sort of tail end of what I'm showing here is, we looked at a PDF report earlier, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a CSV, say with just the approvals. So if I now hit submit, and I'm going to get this report. Let's wait for OpenOffice. So now I've got this report of who said what and when. I can then put this in chart it out, do whatever else I need to do, and consolidate all this communication. So Marvel will do this with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of files per production. It's completely centralized, completely consolidated. So all this communication around any digital file can be viewed through the system. When it comes to security, I want to talk a little bit more about that. Not only do we have all the sort of SSL encryption, bit level protection of your data to ensure that nothing is stored on disk. We get regular penetration tests by the studios. So we actually have hackers who try and log into the system and try and break it. And we do that every 3 months. Because we are responsible now for the security and protection of your movie or your studio. So Marvel literally will have every asset across their production, every production they've ever done is a one system available to the cloud. Now, one of the cool things we can do to help with the kind of distributed cloud or being, being local, you're used to gigabit speeds, you're used to some, server local to you. So we actually have two products. One is a cloud system where you can run everything in our servers, and a second one is an enterprise system which runs wherever you are, or even at multiple locations. So Marvel will have a studio in LA which has all their assets, and so if they're local, it's all gigabit. But if they have, say, Avengers in New Mexico, we drop in another server there, and it synchronizes. So simply by putting an asset in the LA system and tagging it with Avengers, it goes out to the Avengers. Or you put a file in the Avengers, it comes back to LA. And they also have what's called their shared library. So this is building out all their plates and their elements and their research and whatever else. So that becomes available to everybody, and then the whole production is synchronized. So this way, even if you're in production office with 1 meg connection, you can have a server there accessing it at gigabit speeds, and we can be trickling it up to a studio system or our cloud system, and then we could serve it out at gigabit speeds from our particular location. So, we've had to do this kind of hybrid, and what we are having to move towards is actually another box which goes on set. So that way, we're hooking directly into whatever, video village you've got going on there, and it can be disconnected. So what will happen is when you come back to base, you plug in your network connection, it will sync to a studio system, cloud system, whatever it might be. And so that way you could literally have all these features. You could be on Instant Messenger on your iPad in the middle of the desert chatting with everybody there. Everything, you could have access to every take you've ever done, all the previews, all the storyboards, all that becomes instantly accessible to you no matter where you are. And so this kind of hybrid of private cloud, public cloud sort of thing, I think is still required until we kind of get the bandwidth and, until we, either get satellite or stop shooting in random locations, which is never going to happen. So that's the heart of it. It's really how do I search, track, view, secure any digital file, manage all the metadata around it, and how do I automate the hell out of it to give you ridiculous amounts of savings. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. So I guess we lost our moderator. So any questions?
And how are you backed up in terms of, if I have my assets stored at Deluxe, they've been around 100 years,
Sure.
so be here tomorrow.
Yep.
How?
Well, we can do batch migration of assets. We're also we're working quite tightly now with Iron Mountain. So that's another kind of aspect of archive which gets pretty interesting. Of when a production's finished, do we just push the source assets off to Iron Mountain? You come in our interface, view the proxy, and say, actually, I want the source, and we just go call Iron Mountain and bring it back. If you've got something like a Deluxe, again, it's like, do you want them to be your post house or your storage facility? It's bigger decisions around what is a post house now. There's a big shift in what are these traditional services in a digital world. So it's very interesting times.
What media do you store in Iron Mountain?
What media? Everything, any digital file.
No,
So-
I mean, what? The DLT tapes?
Yeah. So there's LTO tape.
Is your system only based on video shoot, on a digital shoot?
Anything.
Taking codec, we'll take all this information from cameras. What if you're shooting film?
Film, it would have to go through a traditional scanning process, and and then we would pull it
A
out.
lot of this process if you're not shooting digital.
Well, it stops the automation or the real-time aspect of the dailies. Like Men in Black just shot in shooting film, so we have to go through a degrain process and whatever else. Yeah, exactly. So to be honest, that real-time aspect of getting footage to the cloud as fast as possible is a really new thing we're doing. It's one of the things that with our partners, Codex and ARI, we're going to be having a permanent demo space at the ARI facilities. We're also working with the Universal virtual stages now to see what we can glue together there. We have an office at Paramount, so we're trying to see what we can do there. So we've got a lot of exposure to a lot of the studios right now, and it's one of these things. It's like, hey, we're here. We're trying to just educate people we exist more than anything, and then to see what we can glue together from there.
And is there pricing information on the website or?
We do pricing. You would chat to us, so it's per production. So depending if you're a small production or a big production, whether you want cloud or enterprise, what modules you want. Do you want the footage, the VFX? So there's a whole kind of menu to what you need. So chat to us. Basically I've got Matt up the back here and Robert as well. We're both here. We can
And you have offices in there?
Yes, so we have an office. We're only there about 1 day a week at the moment. It's a new thing. We're based in Culver City, but we're just trying to get some traction there. So it's based there now as well.
On top of IT asset management that you need in production these days.
Yep, that's a very good point.
With this,
Thank you.
You also need IT training. Training and education.
Yep.
So how do you handle that as people come on?
Good question.
As quickly as possible.
Yep.
Onto the system?
So that's a very good point, and I want to bring this up with all producers. Sorry, it's an IT thing. Our biggest challenge right now and our biggest struggle to communicate is the need for IT on production. We are on so many $100 million productions right now with no IT support. You know, they're calling people up, they're doing this haphazard way. You know, it's like having a machine with a million cogs and no one's oiling them. You know, you'll get through it. You know, you'll figure out other ways. But we're big advocates of trying to get IT on production, helping, you know, glue together. Like, if you've got some dude doing a Sparrow transfer, you don't know the impact that you've just slowed 99 people down because of that. And so with IT becomes obviously a lot of savings in that, but then there is this, like I said, this other role for asset management. And the asset manager, you know, you can slot this on a production, and what we will do is we will train, you know, we'll do group training. We have online video stuff as well. We could either do it remote over the web if we need to, or we do it in person when possible. But where we get the most value is when you have that asset manager who's that central point person overseeing it all, and we train them, who then can on-train and be your local support 24/7, who understands the production needs, who's specifically getting requests and delivering them for you. So it's one of those things where you can completely survive without asset management, but people are going to put stuff in where they think it should be, and at the tail end, you're not going to get as much sort of value out of that last deliverable. So the educational training piece, we're actually working with a company called FX PhD. They do a lot of visual effects certification around specific programs. So we're actually going to have a course which will train you in asset management and certify you in asset management. And they're actually based in Australia, but it's completely online. So it's online courses, you know, all video based, and, you know, chatting through the systems and stuff like that.
So you'll be able to place people that take fifth kind on as their show.
Yeah.
You'll be able to help them hire and place the person that you've trained or that has trained them.
Exactly, and it's because it is so new role, it's so difficult to find someone who has the IT skills and the production skills. You know, this is the biggest challenge we have across the board. So I'm getting the sign, better wrap it up, but thank you.